Welcome into the JP and Hack Show, part of the Field of 12 Media Network. Don't know what episode this is. We'll call it the College Football Playoff Preview episode. Presented by our partners over at Bet River Sportsbook. I'm Joshua Perry, of course, joined by my guy Christian Hackenberg. Just came off the holidays, getting ready to watch a little college football playoff football here. How have you been?
Good, man. Feeling a little large due to all of the meals. So going to definitely have to get back in the gym after this. But other than that, man, feeling good. Hope you had a good Christmas and looking forward to a good New Year here. So
yeah, Christmas was good. I'm the same way. The holiday consumption gets me every time. It's not so much the food, it's more the libations. The alcohol flows pretty freely, in Santa's workshop. So all right. So we've got a preview of the college football playoff. I think it's the third time I've said that on this show. And we're going to go through the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl. And we're kind of going to do it in a little bit of a different format. So it's going to be when each team has the ball, we'll kind of give what we're looking out for. But these are going to be two really exciting games. The Michigan-Georgia one, I think, is going to be phenomenal because they're kind of two teams that are built similarly in how they want to attack. When you get down to Alabama and Cincinnati, I think that's a really fun storyline. Alabama's trying to play the underdog, which is wild to me. But I know Luke Fickell's going to have that Cincinnati crew ready to rock and roll. But we'll start with the Orange Bowl. Again, that's Georgia and Michigan playing down in Miami. When Michigan has the ball, what are you looking out for?
Yeah, I think they've really done a great job of finding who they are, especially in the latter half of the year here. I really just expect them to stick to their guns. I don't think they have to reinvent the wheel. I don't think Gaddis really has to do anything extracurricular. He doesn't have to bring in carrying a bunch of gadgety plays. I think their physicality travels. You and I have talked about that, especially up front. I think it's going to be, not to get ahead of myself, I think that's going to be a big part of the game. But really, I look to see if Cade can answer the bell, because I think there's going to be points in time throughout this game where Cade's going to need to make big plays. Not necessarily touchdowns or explosives, but I'm talking big plays in the sense of what you and I define as big plays, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 7s, where he's going to be tasked with throwing the football. And he's going to need to be able to keep moving the chains and keep that offense on schedule, because that's ultimately what they love. They love to control the football, control the time of possession, wear teams down. And those 4 or 5 yard gains turn into 8, 12, 15-yard gains by the third and fourth quarter. I think that's going to be a tough task with this Georgia team, because I think physically they can match up with them. But that's what they need to do, and they need to do it at a higher level than they have all year. And I think if they can do that, it's really going to do college football a service, because I think this is going to be the epitome of throwback game. It's going to be very physical, and I'm excited about it. I'm really excited to watch this game.
Yeah, this one's a really exciting one as well. And I'm kind of similar to yours. I think that Michigan's going to need a counterpunch to their run game, because I just think Georgia is really stout up front. And if they have a weakness on defense, it's been their secondary. So some of the explosive plays that we've seen down the field, I think, is going to be the key for Michigan. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a ton, but when they take their shots, they got to connect on them.
Yeah.
And when they have the opportunity to keep possession of the football, they have to make those plays. But I really do think that a Mike Sainristil type of guy, an Andrell Anthony down the field type shot is going to be something that would be the difference in a game like this, because I'm with you. The physicality is going to be big. I'm not exactly sure they're going to be a ton of points. So maybe one of those big momentum plays is what swings it for a team like Michigan. When Georgia has the ball, what's your key?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Obviously, they're very, very dependent on the run game. I don't think Stetson Bennett averaged more than like 20 throws a game this year. I think he was in the teens, which is unheard of in today's game. So establishing the run, I expect a heavy box for Michigan. I think they're really going to challenge the Georgia receivers to win one-on-one, especially early in the game. Maybe if they get burned, they'll start figuring out creative ways to have help on both sides, whether that be quarters or, just a lot of disguising and try to confuse Stetson pre-snap. But really, I think it's again, they just can't hurt themselves. They turned the ball over against Alabama, and it turned into one of those games where they were trying to do something that they weren't, which is play from behind and score quickly. I don't think Michigan has the explosiveness that Alabama does. I could be wrong though, but I don't, at least on the surface, it doesn't seem like that on paper. So really, I just expect Georgia to come out and continue to be what they've been. They do show up. They do. These guys are mirror images of one another. I mean, realistically speaking, offensively, they're mirror images of one another. I think a crazy little thought is if Bennett is struggling, I think JT, with all of the media attention and all of the dependency on this game, we talked about this before. I think he's definitely he's going to be wearing his helmet the entire game on the sidelines. I don't think there's going to be a loss. I think there's an option to throw him in there, especially if Bennett struggles early. Paid off for Alabama back when they threw Tua in there. I could see Kirby doing something like that if he felt that the team needed it, if they were in that situation where they may be behind a score or two and need to get some momentum. So I think that's something to watch out for, especially for Georgia offensively.
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep him hot in a game like this, and especially, this is, one and done. If you lose, you're out. Like what are you holding him back for? If you feel like that could be the answer to the equation, so I definitely think that's a good thought. For me, it's very similar to what you said. I think if you're Michigan, you got to stop Zamir White and James Cook in the run game. I think that is the way that Georgia's offense wants to get rolling, and you use the term a heavy box. And I think if you're Michigan, that's where you start. But if you're Georgia, you should have spent a ton of time preparing your offensive game plan to what happens when you see a heavy box. What are your answers going to be in the run game? What are your answers going to be in the throw game? So you're not surprised when it comes out like that. So I think that's the game right there. If you're Georgia, you have to find ways to be able to run the football and then protect yourself in the pass game in case they're completely taking the run away. And if you're Michigan, you stop the two running backs first and foremost.
Yep. I think a really interesting thing that I think Georgia could do, especially early on in the game, if they do see that heavy box, is utilize Brock Bowers in a isolated set, get him outside of the box, put him out similarly to what the Patriots did in the Super Bowl against Seattle with Rob Gronkowski. Wasn't really their identity. They were kind of a heavy run team, work off play action, get things going. But when they realized what was happening, they just isolated their best matchup. And I think for Georgia, probably their best matchup from a pass catching standpoint is Brock Bowers. So that'll also be something to watch in my eyes, is figure out a unique, creative way to isolate him, put him on an island with a favorable matchup. They're not going to dedicate a corner to him. It'll be a safety or a linebacker. And let's see what happens. And if they do, it's zone. So, get to work, boys. But it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. And I think that would be something to watch. And at least what I would have, if I was in that room game planning, that's one of the things that I would bring up, just to be able to get that kid the ball in his hands, because he's special.
Yeah, put him backside of a 3-by-1. You get a man-to-man look. Like, that is a nightmare. If you're a linebacker, you got to cover that cat. Like, I don't know exactly
split
what
him
you
out.
want to do. Yeah, that's it right there. So X factor for this game, what are you going with?
I'm going to go with Georgia's defensive line. Okay. I read an article kind of talking about it, and I do agree. I think with so much of the media attention going on that defense throughout the entirety of the year and the special season they put together, and then for them to go out and lay an egg the way they did in the SEC championship game was very, very debilitating to me. I think it was a shot to their ego. I think heading into that game, they were averaging something like 3 sacks a game. I think that's the key to beating Alabama, is moving Bryce Young, getting him uncomfortable. They didn't do that. They got freaking tagged for 500 yards of total offense. I want to see how they respond. I think Kirby's that type of guy. He obviously comes from the Saban branch, and he's going to be intense. He's going to expect a lot out of his guys, but I know that would probably be a factor and a unit that I would be pushing, and I would be letting him hear it every day from the minute that SEC championship game was over till kickoff in the Orange Bowl. That's something I would let them know consistently. And I think they're the X factor. If they show up, they can create some chaos for Cade when he does have to throw in those big situations that I talked about. Mm-hmm. I think they could be the determining factor of this football game.
Yeah, I think my X factor is kind of playing off of yours a little bit, but just the momentum in general of either one of these teams, where if you're Michigan, you stubbed your toe midway through the season, but you were able to get back on track and continue your build. You beat your rival in an emphatic fashion. You were able to go into the Big Ten championship, absolutely hand it to Iowa. And so you're feeling really good. You've got the momentum on your side. Your players have felt that confidence that they can compete with anyone. If you're Georgia, you had a really good year, and then all the momentum comes to a halt in the conference championship game. And you have a long layoff in trying to get that back. And I think that can be difficult at times. Now, I agree with you that Kirby is going to have ways to get these guys' minds right, because that's just the type of coach that he is. But Michigan didn't have to do the process of rebounding after feeling the pain that Georgia did. Michigan has to hedge against not reading all of the headlines and believing that they're too good, right? But you can coach guys hard enough that they don't do that. And I think that's the interesting thing is you'll tell within probably the first quarter of this game where each team is at mentally.
They're both very dangerous too. And that's the funny thing is whenever someone brings that up, that's such a fine line to toe. And teams, it is a massive part of the game. And I think games like this specifically, bowl games, playoff games, championship games, where you have a lot of time in between when you stepped on the field till when you last stepped on the field to stepping on the field now. The teams that can handle that and compartmentalize whichever end of the spectrum they're on the best tend to come out and play the best. So I think that's a very, very solid point, and it's something that I think people should definitely be paying attention to.
Let me tell you about our sponsors over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up yet, Bet Rivers is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart from everyone else is that they require just one playthrough to turn that bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawals are not only fast, they are safe, secure, and reliable. Go to betrivers.com today or download the BetRivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Definitely. We'll flip it over to the Cotton Bowl. That's Alabama and Cincinnati. This one, again, it has some of the fun storylines I talked about. Nick Saban trying to build his team into an underdog mentality, which is absolutely ridiculous because everybody believes that they're the best team in college football right now. You've got Luke Fickell, where almost basically everything had to go right for the Bearcats to get to this point. I played for him. He is a very edgy guy, and I know that he's going to have them motivated, but it's kind of the David and Goliath right now, the number 1 versus number 4, the perennial powerhouse versus the new kids on the block. And this one's going to be extremely fun to watch. When Alabama has the football, what are you keying in on?
I think they need to attack. I don't think there's any feeling out here. I think this is a type of game where offensively Alabama's built to be able to play in a track meet if they need to. Obviously Bryce is very, very, he's put together a spectacular season. But if I'm Bill and I'm Saban, I'm telling that offense to shoot their shot from the first snap. I think if they're super aggressive, they have nothing to lose in the sense that I think even if Cincinnati gets up a score or two, they're not panicking. But if Alabama jumps up a score or two, I think it's a completely different ball game. So I think their risk reward for being able to come out and be super aggressive from the jump favors much into Alabama's hands as opposed to Cincinnati's and what they're giving up. I don't think they're giving up much by doing that. So I expect them to be super aggressive. I think they're going to figure out ways to take some shots early, hopefully connect on them, and just let those guys outside play. They're mismatched all across the board. They create a lot of mismatches, tight ends, receivers, even getting the running backs involved. I want to see Alabama be extremely aggressive.
Yeah, and I think Cincinnati's the back end of their defense is probably the strong suit. And so that's what I'm looking at is how Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant hold up against the talent that Alabama has, because those two guys are really good. They put together great campaigns. But if we're being completely frank about it, they haven't seen the type of offensive skill that Alabama possesses. And they certainly haven't played against a quarterback that can place the ball the way that Bryce Young can place the ball. And so the adjustment curve for those guys as they get into the game and they kind of start to feel the speed and the skill that exists for Alabama, I want to see how they respond, because if those guys can't hold up, I think you can end the game right there.
And I love Cincinnati's defensive backfield. I think both those corners are special, but they're only as good as their front seven in terms of rushes. Because as a defensive back, you can cover someone, but at the end of the day, the receivers know where they need to be. The quarterback knows where the receivers need to be, and the defense doesn't. And if they have all the time in the world to be able to get to those spots and figure it out, you're at a disadvantage. You could be the greatest defensive player in the defensive back in the world. It's really, really hard to do that for 4 quarters consistently. So I think they're going to have a heavy reliance on what that front seven does to be able to create some chaos hopefully create some opportunities for them through chaos and disrupt some timing. But like I said, I still think if Alabama just keeps going out there and shooting their shot, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, and I think that is a really unique thing that you brought up, that if you're Alabama, even if you're down 14 points, you feel like you're still in the game. If you're Cincinnati, you get down 14 and you're probably in the old bag of tricks trying to figure out what the hell you need to do to get back in the thing. It's just they're in two completely different places as programs. When Cincinnati has the ball, what are you looking for?
Yeah, I think they need to get off the bus. Just watching them throughout the year, they've started very slow in games, and kind of playing into my point, they can't start slow this game. If they can match scores, if Alabama comes out and is aggressive and puts some points on the board and they can match, I think that they'll put themselves in a position to be in the ball game when it comes crunch time. But I think offensively, obviously, Desmond's going to have to shoulder a lot of this. He's going to have to make a lot of plays for them. I do love their running back. I love their running game, but I'm not quite sure how within their scheme they can create ways to create a lot of space up front to run against a pretty stout defense in Alabama, even though I think Alabama's defense has really started to turn a corner in the back half of the season. And I just the scheme and the way the team's built, they're not a physical team. And then when you're trying to run east and west with Alabama, that's really hard to do too. So you're gonna have to scheme some stuff up from a run game standpoint creatively to create space, misdirection, a little bit of window dressing with motions and things like that to get them involved. But like I said, I really think the brunt of the game is going to be on Desmond Ritter's shoulders, and we'll see if he can answer the bell.
Totally agree with that. I'm like you. I love Jerome Ford. I think he's a very good running back. I think rushing yards are going to be very hard to come by. Not necessarily impossible, but you got to make those rushing chances count. And then for Ritter, my thing with him is he needs to be accurate and he needs to make good decisions, because as explosive as he can be in the pass game, sometimes the ball gets away from him. And other times he just makes some throws and it's like, bro, where the hell are you going with the football? And against a team like Alabama, you can have a drive stall, and that's one thing. If you turn the football over, that's a completely different story. That's literally how you lose a football game. So for him, you're probably better off eating the ball and taking a sack than just taking a chance with it and having them get an interception. So I want to see what he looks like in those situations. Do you throw the ball away when you need to? If you need to take a sack, do you do that? And then can you be accurate down the field and get it to the right guy when the chances come? Because we know he's good enough, but he just needs to do it consistently.
Yep, 100%.
X factor for this game.
Yeah, man. I mean, I kind of touched on it. I think Bryce Young coming into it, can he stay on schedule and stay on rhythm the way that he has pretty much the whole year? He's really the guy who, in my opinion, can drive this game from them. I think he's going to have ample opportunities to make big plays. And if he hits them consistently, I think they're going to be really happy with their result. So X factor, I'm really watching Bryce Young. I want to see how he responds just coming off a Heisman. There's a lot of stuff going on there. I want to see if he stays in the same mindset or if there's some external factors that may be rattling around in the old 6 inches between the ears that could cause some issues. So but I'm really paying attention to him.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. You mentioned it, we always joked around that in that time between the bowl game and the end of the season, when everybody's doing all the award shows, you're sitting there, you're eating steak dinners, you're traveling, you're getting fat and happy. And then you got to go out there and execute in a football game. And it's definitely difficult. For me, I look at this game. Nick Saban has been to the college football playoff a million times, it seems like. And he understands how to prepare his team for the semifinal game and also how to make sure that he's not overworking them so they can be fresh for a national title game. And I think that balance of understanding the preparation aspect and having been there before and knowing the media obligations and all the different things that you have to do is valuable. But Luke Fickell had the year at Ohio State in 2014 where we won it all, where he was a part of that infrastructure and a part of planning and a part of coaching through that. And he was coaching against Nick Saban as well. And so the X factor to me is Nick Saban's got all of that experience, and that is a huge benefit to him. Can Luke Fickell pull on 2014 season and kind of think back to the things that really worked for Ohio State when he was coaching there. And was he able to do all of those things in the preparation leading up? I think this is a unique coaching matchup because, again, it's Nick Saban, best college football coach we've ever seen, and Luke Fickell, one of the hottest rising stars right now. And they're coming to a clash, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point about Fickell having been there before. He necessarily wasn't driving the ship, but he was involved in it. And that's any experience is great experience heading into seeing Saban. You know what I mean? If you have even a little taste of it and a little bit of what the expectation and the feel of that game is, that's valuable, especially if you're leading it. Had you never been there before, that's going to be some tough waters to step into and feel confident. And I think Fickell has the mental aptitude and obviously now, like you said, some of the experience to be able to do it and stand there confidently in the heat of battle.
Yeah, it's going to be big. And it's so funny, man, because you walk in there as the underdog, and I've been there before, and it's an unsettling feeling because not only are like most of the fans that are there probably rooting against you, but like the media's talking about how you don't have a great shot and how everything has to be perfect. Yeah. And it's really uncomfortable, but Luke has literally been in that situation before, so he's going to be able to handle that through his team. It's just how the guys respond to it.
Yep. That'll be fun to watch. I think that this game's going to be a lot closer than most people are projecting. I think this is going to be a good football game. If not for the entirety, at least for a good portion of it.
I agree with that 100%. Well, this was a quick one. It was a fun one. It's been a pleasure doing this with you. And here it is, the JP and Hack Show, part of the Field 12 Media Network. Joshua Perry, Christian Hackenberg, and we'll holler at you when we see you.